offenses.
Sure. We didn't get into MERV or anything else, but my time has expired,
Yeah.
so.
Thank you, Mr. Mast. I'll follow up with some of your questions. Mr.
Suozzi,
Suozzi,
you got it.
I've got a really difficult name, so I hope you don't get insulted by Suozzi.
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 Suozzi in Italian.
Suozzi, thank you.
Madam Chair, I want to thank you very much for your leadership here, as well as the ranking member. I want to thank the witnesses for their thoughtful insight and analysis. It really is a great education that you're giving us here today. I think that there's broad agreement in this room that there's a serious problem with Iran's ballistic missile program, and that something has to be done. It's a question of what's the proper authority and how are we going to do it, and who are our partners going to be in that process. But I think that there's a broad agreement. I want to ask a question about timing. The elections are coming up in Iran in May, and I'd like to just hear the benefit of your analysis regarding the politics of Iran and how the President, Rouhani, and the Supreme Leader and the IRGC and all the different players that are involved here, the regular military. Just tell me a little bit about the intersection of all of them, and then how what we do could or could not affect that outcome.
I'll start with that. The regular military that existed under the Shah, it is still there. It does not interfere in politics at all. In fact, during the uprising of 2009, the regular military issued a letter saying, do not ask us to go repress these demonstrators. So they are not a factor. Now, the IRGC, as I said in my statement, is a factor.
The regular military reports to the civilian president?
It reports up to a general headquarters that reports to the Supreme Leader, actually.
To the Supreme Leader, okay,
yes, the
thank
Supreme Leader is technically the commander-in-chief of the whole armed forces, right. The IRGC does interfere in politics, and they've done so on several occasions. In fact, it was widely reported, and there seems to be agreement that it did put Mr. Ahmadinejad over the top in 2005. He came out of nowhere, but the IRGC deployed the Besiege. They leafleted for him. They drove people to the polls, and they view it as their mission to interfere in politics, to defend the revolution. Now, I think most experts, and I would say I'm in this camp too, thinks that if it's a free and fair election, Mr. Rouhani is the favorite. He ran on a platform of delivering Iran from its international isolation. He negotiated the JCPOA. He did bring them to some extent out of their isolation. So he did. The people that voted for him in 2013 seem to probably vote for him again. Now, the issue is the hardliners. There was some thinking earlier on that the hardliners would maybe just not even contest it so much, but no, they seem to be organizing. They're trying to unify around one conservative hardline candidate to oppose him.
Who is that?
Well, they have not. They're having some caucuses. For the first time, they're actually having some meetings to try to vote on one unified candidate. The issue is there is one particular figure who the Supreme Leader favors a lot, who they might choose, and that would be significant because if this individual runs, the regime might be tempted to try to, let's say, interfere on his behalf, to put it mildly. He is the leader of the Quds Rastavi Foundation in Mashhad. Khamenei appointed him last summer, and Khamenei appears to favor him as the next Supreme Leader. So engineering him to the presidency would give him an advantage to be the next Supreme Leader.
If I could take a...
Does it help? I'm sorry. Does it help or hurt for us to do something before May?
You mean in terms of sanctions? Well, probably the hardliners, the Supreme Leader, they have been criticizing Rouhani to some extent that they're saying he has not delivered all the promises of sanctions relief. It is possible that new action could...
I'm running out of time. Mr. Eisenstadt, go ahead.
I'll just be quick. Iranian domestic politics has its own internal logic, and our ability to influence it in ways that redounds to the benefit of American policy has generally worked out, just the opposite that we had hoped. And I would just say we could probably do a lot to hurt things, but it's not a lot we can do to help the people that we want to help. President Khatami, when he was elected in '97, we had hopes that this would herald a change. He was undercut by his domestic opponents. President Bush wanted regime change, but The people didn't rise up. They rose up in 2009 when we had a president who wanted to engage the regime there. And with the JCPOA, we were hoping that the nuclear agreement would lead to a broad, a general improvement in the relations between the two countries. But what we've seen is, in fact, it's probably emboldened those who are against the improvement of relations. So our ability to game this in a way to advance our goals has shown to be very limited, if non-existent. But there is things we can do that could harm things if we act in a heavy-handed way sometimes. But often we can't really help the people we want to help usually.
I'll just be very brief in responding to this. I think I would like to agree with the comments just made by my colleague, Dr. Eisen said, that in fact it's very difficult for U.S. policymakers to specifically engineer particular political outcomes in Iran. We should be very humble about that. I don't think that undertaking sanctions enforcement using existing authorities will meaningfully sway Iranian politics. It doesn't actually change the broader U.S. posture or the set of authorities that are in place. Nevertheless, there's no specific need to do something now versus 60 or 90 days from now, absent a particular provocation against which the U.S. should push back. So there's plenty of opportunities. The United States has an ability to use them whenever it wants.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Excellent questions and answers. And now we turn to Ms. Wagner, Ambassador Wagner.